First contact. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Athena, watching the crystalline spires of the Nexari homeworld glitter like diamonds against the violet sky. After 6 months of delicate negotiations, this was humanity's chance to prevent a war that could devastate both civilizations. The Nexari's advanced biotechnology and humanity's rapid expansion had put both species on a collision course that only diplomacy could prevent. "Ambassador, we're receiving the landing coordinates," Lieutenant Rivera announced from his station. "The Queen's Guard will meet us at the Crystal Spire." Sarah straightened her formal diplomatic attire, a blend of traditional Earth formal wear and elements that would respect Nexari customs. The iridescent fabric shifted colors subtly, mimicking the Nexari's natural ability to change their crystalline skin tones to express emotion. "Any last-minute intelligence?" she asked, though she'd memorized every detail about Queen Zura and her court. Rivera's expression darkened. "Nothing concrete, but our sensors detected unusual energy signatures around the palace. Could be nothing, or could be everything," Sarah finished. In her 15 years of diplomatic service, she'd learned to trust such instincts. Keep the quantum comm link active. If anything feels wrong, "We'll have you out in seconds," Rivera assured her. The landing was smooth, the reception party exactly as protocol dictated. 6 Nexari royal guards, their crystalline bodies refracting light in complex patterns that denoted their rank and lineage, escorted Sarah through corridors that seemed carved from living crystal. The throne room took her breath away. Massive crystals grew from floor to ceiling, each one humming with a frequency just at the edge of human hearing. Queen Zura sat upon a throne that appeared to float in midair, her form more delicate than the intelligence reports had suggested. Her crystalline body was nearly transparent, with threads of violet and gold running through it like frozen lightning. "Ambassador Chen." The Queen's voice resonated through the chamber, each word creating ripples of color in the air. "Welcome to Nexar Prime." Sarah executed the formal bow she'd practiced countless times. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth and the United Human Worlds." As she straightened, she caught something in the Queen's expression. Fear. The emotion rippled through the Queen's crystalline form for just a fraction of a second before being masked. "We have much to discuss," Queen Zura said, her tone formal but urgent. "Perhaps in more private settings." The royal advisor, a towering Nexari named Vex, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, protocol dictates." "Protocol will doom us all if we cannot speak freely," Zyra interrupted, her form flashing deep red, a sign of authority among her people. "Ambassador Chen, will you join me in the Garden of Echoes?" Sarah's translator implant buzzed with a warning. The Garden of Echoes was a sacred space, rarely open to outsiders. Something was very wrong. "It would be my honor," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. As they walked through corridors that grew increasingly complex and beautiful, Sarah noticed the guard detail thinning until only 2 remained. The Garden of Echoes lived up to its name. Every step created ripples of sound that bounced between crystal formations, creating an ever-changing symphony. Once they were relatively private, Queen Zura's formal demeanor cracked. "Ambassador, I have minutes to warn you. There are factions within both our governments working to ensure these peace talks fail." Sarah's blood ran cold. "We suspected as much on our side. War profiteers." Worse, Zyra's form darkened to deep purple, fear and rage combined. "They've discovered something in the space between our territories, something ancient, something they believe will give them power over both our species. Why tell me this? Why risk?" A distant explosion rocked the palace. Alarms began to sound, their crystalline tones creating a cacophony of warning colors throughout the structure. "Because," Zyra said, her form stabilizing into a determined blue, "I believe our species' best chance of survival is to work together. Right now, assassins are moving to eliminate both of us, blame each other's governments, and start a war that will weaken us enough for them to seize control. Sarah's diplomatic training warred with years of survival instincts. Trust an alien queen she'd just met, or retreat to the safety of her ship. Another explosion, closer this time. The decision was made for her. "What's your plan?" Sarah asked, already reaching for the hidden plasma pistol in her diplomatic robes. Queen Zyra's form shifted, revealing hidden patterns that Sarah's eyes could barely track. "First, we survive the next few minutes. Then we find proof of the conspiracy. Finally," she paused, her crystalline form pulsing with determination, "we show both our peoples that cooperation isn't just possible, it's essential." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the crystal corridors. Sarah checked her pistol's charge and took up a defensive position, working together against impossible odds. "Your Majesty, you're about to learn humanity's specialty." Queen Zyra's form rippled with what Sarah's translator identified as amusement. "And you, Ambassador, are about to learn why the Nexeri are called the Shapers of Reality." The garden's crystals began to hum with increasing intensity as both women prepared to face whatever came through the door. In that moment, Sarah realized this was more than a diplomatic mission. It was the beginning of something that would change both their civilizations forever. The Alliance. The Garden of Echoes erupted into chaos as the first wave of attackers breached the outer defenses. Sarah had expected heavily armed commandos. Instead, she found herself facing something far more terrifying. Crystalline constructs that seemed to phase through solid matter, their forms constantly shifting between solid and ethereal states. "Void Walkers," Queen Zyra hissed, her own crystalline form pulsing with combat frequencies. "They've corrupted our defensive guardians." Sarah's plasma pistol discharge, the bolt passing harmlessly through one of the constructs. "Any suggestions?" The Queen's response was immediate and dramatic. She pressed her hand against one of the garden's master crystals, sending pulses of energy through the crystalline network. The very walls began to vibrate at frequencies that made Sarah's teeth ache. "Your weapon," Zyra commanded. "Press it against this crystal. Quick." Sarah didn't hesitate. She'd learned long ago that in diplomatic missions gone sideways, sometimes you had to trust your instincts and your allies. The moment her pistol touched the crystal, its energy core began to resonate with the chamber's frequencies. The next shot she fired created a cascade of energy that temporarily solidified the Void Walkers, making them vulnerable. "Now that," Sarah grinned, "taking down two constructs with precise shots, is what I call cooperation." Zyra's form shifted into combat configuration, extensions of living crystal forming weapons and shields around her. "We need to reach the secure archives beneath the palace. The evidence of the conspiracy, everything I've gathered. It's all there." They fought their way through the palace corridors, Sarah's enhanced weapons and Zyra's crystal manipulation making them a formidable team. The Queen's knowledge of secret passages and Sarah's tactical training complemented each other perfectly. "Your Majesty," Sarah called out as they descended a hidden spiral staircase. "I have to ask, how long have you known about this conspiracy?" "3 of your Earth months," Zyra replied, her form dimming slightly, a sign of regret. "When I first discovered traces of unauthorized archaeological excavations in the neutral zone, ancient technology, far beyond either of our civilizations. A squad of corrupted royal guards blocked their path. Sarah noticed how their crystalline forms had been tainted, dark veins running through once pure structures. Zyra raised her hands, and the varied floor beneath the guards transformed, trapping them in a lattice of resonating crystal. "The conspirators," Zyra continued as they pressed forward. "They believe they found weapons. But it's so much more dangerous than that. The artifacts they're unearthing, they're pieces of something that nearly destroyed this galaxy eons ago." They reached a massive vault door, its surface covered in living crystal circuits that pulsed with security measures. Sarah kept watch while Zyra began the complex process of opening it. "Ambassador," Zyra spoke as she worked, "there's something else you should know. The reason I chose to trust you specifically." She paused, her form flickering with uncertainty. "Your psychological profile, your history of finding diplomatic solutions in impossible situations. They mirror my own. Among my people, such resonance is considered a sign of destined alliance." Sarah was about to respond when her tactical sensors screamed a warning. Multiple hostiles, closing fast. The vault door finally opened, revealing a chamber filled with holographic data crystals and ancient artifacts. But they had only moments before they would be overwhelmed. Inside, Zyra commanded, "The vault's defenses will buy us time." They rushed in, the door sealing behind them just as the first explosions hit it. Sarah stared in awe at the collection of evidence around them, proof of a conspiracy that spanned both their civilizations and threatened everything they held dear. "So," Sarah said, holstering her weapon and turning to the Queen, "about that destined alliance." Zyra's form brightened, colors shifting through patterns that Sarah's translator struggled to interpret. "Among my people, there is an ancient tradition. In times of greatest crisis, when two leaders find their paths aligned." She extended her hand, crystal formations creating an intricate pattern in the air between them. Sarah understood. This wasn't just about saving their peoples from war anymore. This was about forging something new, a partnership that could change the course of both their civilizations. "I accept," Sarah said, reaching out to clasp Zyra's crystalline hand. The moment they touched, the chamber's crystals resonated in harmony, creating a display of light and sound that sealed their pact. Now they just had to survive long enough to use the evidence they'd gathered, expose the conspiracy, and prevent a war, all while trapped in a vault with enemies closing in from all sides. But as Sarah caught Zyra's determined gaze, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had a saying: the best diplomatic solutions often arose from the worst situations, and this situation was about to get very diplomatic indeed. Hidden enemies. The vault's security systems hummed with increasing intensity as their pursuers attempted to breach the entrance. Sarah moved quickly through the holographic displays, her neural implants processing and cataloging the evidence while Zyra interfaced directly with the crystal archives. "This goes deeper than we imagined," Sarah muttered, reviewing financial transactions that linked weapons manufacturers from both species. They'd been planning this for years. Worse, Zyra's form pulsed with dark colors of concern. "Look at this." She gestured, and a holographic map materialized between them, showing the neutral zone where their territories met. Dozens of excavation sites glowed like malignant stars. Each site contains a piece of what they call the World Breaker. Sarah's blood ran cold as she studied the ancient text accompanying the map. "A weapon?" "A key," Zyra corrected. "The ancient ones, those who came before both our species, they found something in the dark between galaxies, something they feared so much they scattered the keys to awaken it across countless worlds." The vault shuddered as another explosion hit the door. Sarah checked her tactical display. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they break through. Please tell me you have a backup plan for getting out of here." Zyra's form shifted, becoming more angular, more focused. "The vault connects to the old crystal tunnels beneath the palace. They're unstable, but unstable is better than certain death," Sarah finished. She'd already downloaded everything she could to her secure quantum drive. "Lead the way." The hidden entrance to the tunnels opened like a wound in the crystalline floor, revealing a network of passages that glowed with their own inner light. As they descended, Sarah could hear the crystal formations singing, creating harmonics that made her skin tingle. "The tunnels are alive," Zyra explained as they moved swiftly through the labyrinth. "They respond to emotional states. Right now, they sense our urgency. And our pursuers will have a harder time following. The crystals know I am their queen." They emerged into a vast underground chamber that took Sarah's breath away. Massive crystal formations created natural bridges and platforms over what appeared to be an underground ocean, its surface reflecting the bioluminescent ceiling in endless patterns. "The heart of Nexer," Zyra said, her voice filled with reverence. "The source of our people's connection to the living crystal." A distant explosion reminded them they weren't safe yet. Sarah's tactical training kicked in as she surveyed their options. We need to get this evidence to both our governments, but they'll be watching all official channels. Zyra moved to a central crystal formation, her form merging partially with it. There's something else you need to see first. The chamber's light shifted, and new holograms appeared. Personnel files, genetic research data, and something that made Sarah's heart skip. Project Eclipse, she whispered, recognizing the classified human military designation. They told us it was abandoned. Your military's attempt to artificially replicate our crystalline biology, Zyra confirmed, and my people's corresponding project to understand human adaptability. Both supposedly failed, but they didn't fail, did they? Sarah was beginning to see the bigger picture. They succeeded too well. The conspirators, they're not just trying to start a war. They're trying to create a new species, something that combines the worst aspects of both our peoples. The chamber trembled as distant explosions grew closer. Zyra's form pulsed with determination. And they need the World Breaker's power to complete the transformation, to rewrite the very laws of biology across both our territories. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. A forced evolution, millions of lives transformed without consent, the balance of power forever altered. How many of our leaders are compromised? Enough to ensure any official action will be blocked. Zyra's colors shifted to a deep, resolute blue. Which is why we need to go outside official channels. Sarah smiled grimly. I might know some people. Independent operators who've helped with sensitive diplomatic situations before. As do I, Zyra replied. But first, we need to survive the next few minutes. She gestured to the crystal bridges above them, where shadows were beginning to move. They found us. Sarah checked her weapon's charge. Still good, thanks to its resonance with the living crystal. Your Majesty, I hope you're ready for some very undiplomatic diplomacy. Zyra's form shifted into combat configuration, the living crystal around them humming in harmony with her power. Ambassador Chen, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful alliance. Above them, the first wave of corrupted guards and void walkers began their descent. But as Sarah took up a defensive position beside her alien ally, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Because if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was beating impossible odds. And with the power of the Nexari Queen beside her, those odds were looking better by the second. Battle for peace. The heart of Nexar erupted into chaos as the corrupted forces descended from above. Sarah's plasma pistol sang in harmony with the living crystal, each shot creating cascading resonances that brought down void walkers. Beside her, Queen Zira was a force of nature, commanding the very structure of the chamber to fight for them. The eastern tunnel, Zyra called out between attacks. It leads to an ancient transportation hub, if we can reach it. Less planning, more surviving. Sarah replied, diving behind a crystal formation as energy blasts rained down. Her tactical display was going crazy, trying to track enemies that seemed to exist in multiple states at once. They fought their way across crystal bridges that shifted and moved under Zyra's command, creating an ever-changing battlefield that gave them the advantage. Sarah's years of diplomatic combat training merged seamlessly with Zyra's crystal manipulation, as if they'd been fighting together for years instead of hours. You know, Sarah said as they took cover behind a crystalline barrier. On Earth, this would qualify as one hell of a first date. Zyra's form flickered with what Sarah's translator identified as surprised amusement. Among my people, sharing combat resonance is considered quite intimate. Their moment of levity was interrupted by a new sound, a deep, thrumming vibration that made the entire chamber shudder. The corrupted forces suddenly withdrew, taking up defensive positions on the upper levels. They're not retreating, Sarah realized, checking her tactical readouts. They're making way for something. The chamber's main entrance exploded inward, and through the debris stepped a figure that made both women freeze. It was neither human nor Nexari, but a horrific combination of both, crystalline structures growing from modified human flesh, pulsing with corrupted energy. Ambassador Chen. The figure's voice resonated through the chamber, distorted and wrong. Your reputation for getting involved in things beyond your understanding remains intact. Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized the voice. Admiral Vega. They said you died in the Proxima incident. I evolved, Vega replied, his crystalline components pulsing with sickly light. As all of humanity will evolve, once we unlock the World Breaker's full potential. Zyra moved slightly closer to Sarah, her form radiating protective frequencies. You're an abomination. The fusion of our species was never meant to be forced like this. Meant to be. Vega laughed, the sound creating discordant ripples through the living crystal around them. We're done waiting for evolution's slow march. The Ancient Ones left us the keys to godhood, and we will use them. Sarah's mind raced. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and facing an enemy who had the worst qualities of both species. But they also had something Vega couldn't understand. True cooperation, born of choice and trust. Zyra, she whispered, an idea forming. The heart chamber, it amplifies crystalline resonance, right? Yes, but Zyra's form pulsed as she understood. It would be dangerous. Maybe fatal. More fatal than him. Sarah nodded toward Vega, who was advancing slowly, savoring his apparent victory. Zyra's colors shifted through patterns of concern, determination, and something deeper. It would require perfect synchronization. Our energies, our very beings, would have to align completely. You said we had destined resonance. Sarah smiled, taking Zyra's crystalline hand. Time to prove it. Vega must have sensed their intent. He charged forward, his corrupted form leaving trails of sickly light in the air. But he was too late. Sarah pressed her plasma pistol against the central crystal formation as Zyra merged with it from the other side. The chamber's song rose to a crescendo as human technology and Nexari biology synchronized through their shared connection. The heart of Nexar recognized their harmony, a willing union of two species working together, and responded. Pure, cleansing resonance exploded outward in waves of light and sound. The corrupted forces screamed as the energy washed over them, their unnatural fusion unable to withstand the pure frequencies. Vega's form began to crack, corrupted crystals shattering as the chamber's power rejected his forced evolution. This isn't over, he snarled as his body began to disintegrate. The World Breaker will remain sleeping, Zyra declared, her form blazing with power. Our peoples will choose their own path forward. The wave of energy reached the chamber's limits and rebounded, creating a feedback loop that threatened to tear the entire complex apart. Sarah felt herself beginning to lose consciousness as the resonance overwhelmed her human senses. The last thing she saw was Zyra's form reaching for her, their hands clasping as the world dissolved into pure light. A new beginning. Sarah awoke to the sound of crystal chimes and the sensation of light dancing across her skin. She was lying in what appeared to be a medical chamber, its walls pulsing with gentle, healing frequencies. Queen Zyra sat beside her, her crystalline form somehow different, more vibrant, more defined. Welcome back, Ambassador. Zyra's voice carried new harmonics that made the room's crystals sing in response. You've been unconscious for 3 Earth days. Sarah tried to sit up and noticed something strange. Her movements left trailing echoes of light in the air. What happened to me? The resonance event in the heart chamber. It changed both of us. Zyra's form shifted, creating patterns that Sarah could now somehow read without her translator. The pure harmony we achieved. It's unprecedented in either of our histories. Sarah held up her hand, watching as light played across her skin in ways that seemed almost Nexari. I'm still human, but you're also something more, Zyra completed. As am I. We proved that our species can evolve together, through choice and harmony rather than force. The conspirators. Most were caught in the resonance wave. Those who survived are being rounded up by joint human Nexari task forces, Zyra's colors showed satisfaction. The evidence we gathered was transmitted to both governments during the battle. It's rather hard to maintain a conspiracy when your illegal experiments are broadcast on all channels. Sarah swung her legs off the medical bed, testing her balance. Her body felt different, lighter, more attuned to the crystalline environment around her. And the world breaker. The keys are being secured by a joint commission. Some secrets are best left sleeping. Zyra moved closer, her form emanating concern. But we have more immediate matters to discuss. Our connection has implications for both our peoples. Sarah smiled, reaching out to touch a nearby crystal and watching it respond to her presence. You mean how the human ambassador and the Nexari queen achieved something that all those mad scientists and their forced experiments couldn't? The first true human Nexari synthesis, born of trust and choice. Zyra's form brightened. It's already changing things. The resonance wave didn't just stop the conspirators. It showed both our peoples a glimpse of what willing cooperation could achieve. Through the chamber's windows, Sarah could see the capital city stretching out below. Human ships now docked peacefully alongside crystalline structures, their crews working with Nexari to rebuild what the battle had damaged. More importantly, she could see places where the two technologies were beginning to merge naturally, creating something new and beautiful. They're calling it the Harmony Protocol, Zyra continued, a framework for controlled, voluntary technological and biological exchange between our species. No more stolen research or forced evolution, just open collaboration with proper safeguards. And us? Sarah asked, finally voicing the question that hung between them. What does this mean for the human ambassador and the Nexari queen who started it all? Zyra's form shifted through colors that Sarah now recognized as hope, affection, and something deeper. Among my people, those who achieve perfect resonance are considered bound beyond any formal alliance. And since you can now read Nexari color patterns, you're blushing. Sarah grinned, delighting in how Zyra's form flickered in response. I am doing no such thing, Zyra protested, but her colors gave her away. I am merely suggesting that our unique situation provides an opportunity for lasting diplomatic relations between our peoples. Sarah stood, finding her balance in this new, changed body. She could feel the living crystal around them, could sense the harmonies that connected all things, but more importantly, she could feel the resonance between herself and Zyra, a bridge between two species that had nearly destroyed each other, now pointing the way toward a better future. Diplomatic relations. Sarah moved closer, watching light dance between them where their energies met. Is that what they're calling it these days? Zyra's form brightened, creating a display of color and light that made the whole chamber sing. Well, Ambassador Chen, shall we show our peoples what true harmony looks like? Sarah took Zyra's crystalline hand, marveling at how natural it felt now. Above them, the three sons of Nexar Prime painted the sky in colors that seemed to celebrate their union, while on the horizon, the first mixed crews of humans and Nexari worked together to build something new. Lead the way, Your Majesty, Sarah replied. We have a whole future to write. And in the heart of the Crystal City, where ancient secrets slept and new possibilities awakened, two leaders who had dared to trust began the work of bringing their peoples together. Not through force or fear, but through choice, trust, and the kind of harmony that could only come from understanding. The resonance wave they had created continued to spread, touching both their worlds with its message. Evolution couldn't be forced, but when people chose to reach across the divide, miracles were possible. It was, Sarah thought as she and Zyra began planning their new future, one hell of a first diplomatic mission.